All right, guys, we're going to kick this off with some lob pitches, all right? We got some lob pitches, some easy questions. Hey, Mike. How you doing, Mike? Mike's a little worried now because I'm calling him by name. Mike, I'm guessing just a hunch that you're probably the most veteran breeder up here. Notice I didn't say he was the oldest guy up here. That would be rude. Yeah, okay. I said he's the most veteran breeder up here. Are we in agreement, gentlemen? Okay. So, Mike, you get the first question. In the last 10 or 15 years, what has changed in your selection process? What are some things you look at differently now than you looked at 10 or 15 years ago?
Really, there's not been that much change in the last 10 or 15 years ago. In what I've tried to do, my goals are the same. The only thing that I think has really changed is there's a lot more breeders actively with a high level of energy are breeding sheep. And I think the selection of the gene pool is larger than it was 10 or 15 years ago. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed. And I can remember I brought some of the first weather type sheep to Sedalia before they even had a weather siren, weather dam show. And I've seen this thing grow and progress and change in many, many ways. And really, it used to be a lot more regionalized. You kind of had the Southwest deal, the Midwest deal, and then all points in between, South, East, and so forth. But, you know, now it's kind of more of a great melting pot, I think, as far as the gene pools and just the type sheep. And basically, you know, of course, you know, so we've had trends that have varied and changed, like the fuzzy-legged and big-footed and all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with anything. But really, you know, the basics of sheep, they're a production animal, and I mean, I try to breed females, basically.
I think another thing that's really excelled, to add on to what Mike said about increasing the gene pool, is just the reproductive technologies that we have available to us now with the use of embryo transfer and AI work that just weren't available 10, 15 years ago. And we've been able to take and select some of the really ideal sheep, or at least what we view as the ideal sheep, and really multiply those and just make that many more females, that many more males. And they've been spread across the country to again, add on to what Mike said, just to really increase that gene pool and increase the numbers of people that are doing it. But I think that's made a huge advancement in the genetics that have been available to everyone.
Okay, now we've changed a lot of things. We've talked about technology. We talked about type briefly. With some of the other things, we do some things better now than we did 10 or 15 years ago. Wouldn't you agree? As we look back at some of those winners pictures from 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, I've seen some of you guys in those pictures. I've seen some of y'all in those pictures too. We look back, our kids laugh at us now. You showed that, right? What are some things that we did poorly 15 or 20 years ago that we're doing a much better job of today? Wade?
I wish I was around 15 years ago when all y'all were here. I could take my hat off and you would probably think I would have been here 15 years ago, because I don't have much hair, but I'm not sure exactly what we did poorly 15 years ago. I think maybe the difference is between now, particularly when you talk about making wethers and wethers that can win big-time market land shows. I think we've become a lot more specialized on how we feed them and how we manage them. And so I think, you know, sometimes lambs that were born in 1985 or 1990 probably weren't given the same opportunities to develop and be presented in such a way that they are now. I mean, you look at the old pictures and study them and realize that those sheep, from a fundamental standpoint, were probably somewhat similar to what they are now, but yet, maybe from a presentation standpoint, weren't nearly as good as what we are capable of doing at this point. And I think that's just things that we've learned and developed over the years, because really, if you think about it, the difference between a grand champion lamb and a very good second place sheep at a big boy sheep show might be how that lamb was presented, how he was clipped, how he's presented, how his back leg was sheared, maybe how that boy or young lady showed that particular lamb, and I think those are things that over time, I think we've just gotten better at. And so I'm not sure, you know, we look at the old pictures and yeah, maybe them sheep were fed different and they were filled different, they looked different, showed different, all those things, but like any other thing you try to master over time and try to beat your neighbor or beat your competitor, you just got to get better at it. And I think, you know, in the last 15 years, we've just gotten better. And I'm not sure the sheep are that much different, other than maybe just the people that are showing them, presenting them, feeding them, are just better than they used to be. At least that's my take.
When we look back 10 or 15 years ago, our sheep have changed from a body composition, a fat deposition perspective. Brad, you talked about, you used to do some frame Dorsets back in the day. We talk about, when we talk about body composition and fat deposition of show wethers, how have we changed what we're looking for in from a genetic perspective?
Well, I mean, from where I came from and to where I'm at today, it doesn't take anything positive or negative from the two different segments of our industry. I think both segments are very viable industries that are, you know, if you can be good at in the breeding sheep or you can be good at in a market lamb standpoint, you both, you know, you have those equal opportunities to be successful in either. When you want to talk about composition of fat or whatever, you know, I mean, ideally, you know, a lot of these shows, it's nice to know if you know who's judging the show prior to, because different people that are judging are going to select, you know, or tolerate more cover than somebody that maybe else is judging, and I think it's very important to know that if you can. You know, everybody has their opinion. We don't want to turn it into an opinion panel on what really makes a difference, but, you know, you naturally want to get away with as much fat cover as possible. It adds mass, it adds depth, it adds, you know, volume to your sheep without going over the edge. The reality is, you know, there's a fine line in the last 2 weeks of feeding that you can go over the edge, and it really changes things when they start laying on fat. But I think from a standpoint from where we were, I think we used to show sheep that were a lot rawer than they are today. You know, we used to show a lot of what I call hot dog gutted sheep that we thought were cool, and today I think we want sheep that are compositionally better in their underline, they're deeper in their flank. You know, as I see it, I still think it matters on how your chest floor lays in them. You know, I still think you want an up-fronted sheep that, you know, one reason that I like up-fronted sheep is, from a breeder's standpoint, is it's easier for a kid to show an up-fronted sheep than it is a down-fronted sheep. You know, short-fronted sheep, it takes a real talented person who has the ability to show that sheep. And if a sheep is naturally taller, they can show those sheep easier. But I think we tolerate more cover than we used to, for sure, today than we would have 10 or 15 years ago. So.